I lead my life with kindness. As a little girl, I was in dance and I was quite good. And I wouldn't let my mom come into the practices because I wanted to do it on my own. And she respected it. But there were a lot of other mothers at the practices, and their daughters were cruel to me. And they allowed it. And I would leave there crying, never to them. I wouldn't let them see that. But I would cry to my mom, and my mom would just say to me, Rachel, kill him with kindness. And that stuck with me so long that I think it actually just transformed me into a kind person. That I put it into practice almost as a defense mechanism. And eventually, I think kindness won for me. I realized I would rather be kind than to bully somebody back. So who am I? I am sensitive. I like to make other people feel good. And I really, really like life. I think that's part of why I like to be an actor. It is such a huge part of me because I get to explore things that I wouldn't as Rachel. And it feels so right to tell stories in my body, to get to embody somebody else and to encourage others to think outside of themselves. And yeah, so I would like to think I wouldn't define myself by anything other than characteristics that I lead my life by. So I think I would just say I am sensitive, I'm kind, and my heart feels a lot. My initial response to the story is just, there's an emotional reaction in my chest. It's happening right now. I see bullying as something on a larger scale, because when it happens to us as kids, I think we often carry that for the rest of our lives even. And I've witnessed it as a child, I've witnessed it as a teenager, and I've also witnessed it as an adult. And it amazes me that we don't grow out of bullying. I'm someone who feels no need to put somebody else down, but I know that's not everybody's situation. So seeing a story about bullying, I was drawn to it because I think it's significant to educate ourselves on the subject for many reasons, that it exists, that it has an impact on people, a massive impact, negative. And I think it's important that we choose stories like this so that we can inform one another that we do have an effect on each other. So I was just excited to tell a story about that. As an actor, I am drawn to complex emotional characters. I tend to be drawn to someone I feel has a really interesting emotional wave, if you will. And Julie is far from who I am. So that excites me as well, to be honest. I like to step outside of myself. And there's a challenge in that, where versus saying, oh, well, Rachel does it this way. I have to explore and think really on a much deeper level. How does this person respond in a certain situation? That's a challenge for me as an actor, and I look for challenges. And also, it's just interesting because I don't think any human being is just one thing. Nobody is. We're not all good. We're not all bad. And that's hard to see, right? We'd like to look at somebody who has done a terrible crime and just put them into the black. That's the bad. And an angelic person, they're into the white. That's good. You've got the black and white. I think we live in a world of gray. And as an actor, I think I try to stay in the gray, in the sense of, sure, this person is pretty ugly in most of her behavior, but why? And I think the why would allow us to be more compassionate and sympathetic to a character or to an actual person. And that excites me as a performer, as living in the gray, especially with someone as unhappy as Julie is, I think. Again, a stretch for who I am. That's stepping outside of myself and leaving all of my qualities and all of my motivations behind and really leaping into somebody else. And again, as an actor, that's fun for me. For me, preparing for any role requires different work for different characters. I pull personally sometimes, and other times it's complete imagination, and sometimes it's a combination. So there's my own work as far as what I'm doing internally, and then looking at a character, specifically Julie, my initial instincts and reaction, you get the obvious stuff from Julie, in the sense that she's clearly an alcoholic. She drinks too much. She talks in a way to her daughter that would shock most people. And I think she doesn't like herself. So what I do, I go for the approach of what I like to call the underbelly. What does that all stem from? Because that way I think I'm more sympathetic to the character. And with Julie, I just think she's an unhappy person. And that was where I kind of started from, just her own, because she's unhappy, she can't treat anybody good. And I think that's important to the whole story, not just Julie's story, but our whole story in general, is that it's a kind of a cycle, right? If you can't love yourself, how do you love somebody else? Julie does not love herself. I don't believe so. And she can't show that love to her own daughter. So it was understanding where that would even come from and trying to be gentle with her, but also just knowing that her behavior isn't something that I would approve of, and most people wouldn't. I can name on two hands the number of directors who have either called me, had coffee with me, or lunch, or some type of in-depth conversation prior to a project. And that makes a huge difference. It really does for some reason, it separates directors. And again, somebody would say one is bad and one's good, or vice versa. But for me, that initial interaction is so important, because immediately you build trust, you build a relationship, and now you're just on a team. There is no hierarchy. There's just like, we're on this together and we're on a creative journey together. And that makes it so special. And Paul called me when I got cast, and we ended up having, I think, an hour conversation. And it became about our own personal attachments to bullying. And it was personal. And that, by revealing part of ourselves, we've already dug through a layer of sensitivity and gone, okay, I trust you and you trust me. I gave you a secret maybe, and you gave me one of yours. And that just stands out to me. That says, I'm invested in this project. I want it to be good, and I want my team members, my crew, my cast, my team to trust me. and to understand that this is important not only to me and everybody else making it, but it should be to our audience as well, and the message that we hope to spread. So that stands out. That conversation with Paul was really like a unifying factor. And as far as my dynamic with the rest of the cast and crew, just really lovely human beings. I feel like I have a new group of friends, and that is amazing for me, is to walk away and say, what did I gain from that? I met new people that like to tell stories and put significance into this one in particular. Oh my gosh, I feel like we're on like some entertainment news show.
Well, you should be. Okay, Rachel Alig.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now let's dance.
Yeah. It's just amazing.